Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase podcast. I'm your host, Jill Hart, and with us today is Wendy Leggett. Wendy is a certified retirement life coach who helps people transition from career to retirement with a plan that supports you in living a life that represents your interests, your values, and your vision. You'll embody clarity and conviction around who you are and what you want, and this will empower you to live the next chapter fully and uniquely yours. Welcome to the show, Wendy. It's really great to chat with you today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jill.
You know, I haven't really ever talked to anybody who's a retirement coach. I mean, I talk to retirement financial planners sometimes, but
Sure.
not somebody that just walks people through what retirement could look like if you take some time to plan for it. So.
Yeah, I think you're not alone. So many people think that I've discovered this or that I made it up or something, because we think, well, if our financial house is in order, what more is needed, really? I mean, how easy is retirement going to be? It's leisure, it's travel, it's freedom. But the reality is we bring our whole selves into that next chapter, just like we do every life transition. And if we aren't planful, then we can kind of let life take over. And then we abdicate those choices. And, we know that, hopefully we're healthy and well, and we'll be able to live that 20 or 30 years after we've retired. That's a lot of living left, maybe a third of our life. So yeah. What is that going to look like? And if we don't plan for it, it again can kind of get away from us.
And even in planning, don't you find that it's easy to have some nebulous idea like, I'll just be able to travel wherever I want and whenever I want. But then life comes along. I mean, look at all the people that were retiring in 2020. If they had illusions that they were going to go on cruises and travel the world, it all looks really different now than it did back then.
Yeah. No, I think you bring up that point about what your perspective is. And if we think that we're kind of locked and loaded and we're not able to see the possibilities or to pivot because life does come along, like you said, then we're going to really start to see the lack or start to see the loss or start to feel like, this isn't really where I want to be or what I envisioned. So the planning goes hand in hand with that vision. And then not holding to it too tightly, of course. We don't have to be attached to that outcome. But if we don't kind of know what direction we're going in, it's kind of like not having directions in a car. You're just going to be driving around, which can be fun, I guess, for a little while, but not for
it's for a little while piece that it's like, maybe traveling does incorporate a piece of your life, but it's the day-to-day stuff that people don't think about, so I'm going to travel and I'm going to do all the things I always wanted to do. Well, that may or may not be realistic for where you are health-wise, where you are financially, where you are just in life. Do you have kids? Are they having grandkids? Are they just getting married? Are they just launching? I mean, it depends on when you started having kids, or even if you have kids, or, do you have any extended family anymore? Or are you a part of a couple? And how is your health as a couple? And because when you retire, your dynamics between each other change dramatically. And people don't think about that either.
Yeah, well, I think you had mentioned that you're speaking kind of from your own experience, I think, as well, right? But but yes, going into retirement as a couple with a significant other, then is another layer. So if we don't have a vision for ourselves and we can't communicate that and then collaborate with a partner, then how can we expect to continue to go down the path with them? And that's not to say that we're holding hands all the time, doing everything together. It's really healthy to have individual interests and passions, but then bring that back to the relationship. But if we don't start off with having some clarity there and without having the communication, then we do start to see why there is a rise in divorces in older adults, because everything that they envisioned isn't coming to fruition. But like you said, is it nebulous? Is it unclear to begin with? So how can we expect them to step into it with someone else? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you touch upon this idea of feeling purposeful, feeling that there's meaning. Because yes, there's leisure, travel, all that fun stuff, and that can have a lot of meaning behind it as well. But we want to have a balance and we want to be intentional about the things we do so that we know that when we get up in the morning that we have something that we're contributing to, whether it's for ourselves, reading a great book, helping out a neighbor, or if it's something bigger than that. So it can be feeling purposeful rather than finding purpose. Because I think maybe you feel this way too, Jill, that idea of finding purpose can become so overwhelming for people. It's kind of a showstopper. And instead, let's look at it as feeling purposeful, getting into action, having it be a verb, and think about it too, as it doesn't have to be, as Richard Leiter says, a capital P purpose. It can be a lowercase p, and you can have a lot of things that give you purpose. So this is an important area to explore as well.
I love my dad. He's 88 and he retired 27 years ago. I know because he retired when my second son was born that week. And my mom was with me when my dad retired, and he had set up masterfully. He kept waiting to get fired because he set his own golden parachute up. So he was trying to get fired because he would get paid for a whole year once they fired him. And they kept trying to make him quit, and he wasn't going to quit. He wanted them to fire him. And so he goes into the office, and his boss, he was really friendly with the guy, but his boss is like, Bobby, we're gonna have to. It was like 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and my dad's like, hot damn, I'm gonna get fired. So he goes into the office and he's all excited, and the guy's like, well, we're gonna have to let you go. My dad's like, I'll go clear out my office, I'm ready. And the guy's like, no, you got 2 more weeks. My dad's like, 2 weeks? It's 5 o'clock on Friday. You don't understand how this works in America. You do that so that everything starts fresh on Monday. I'll be on. Went bought a bottle of champagne on his way home to celebrate with my mom, who hurried back when she found out.
But he had a plan.
He did have a plan.
It could be a different one than what I hear very often, that you're wanting to get fired. But I'm going to think that probably his desk was cleared out in part beforehand, that he didn't have so very much to do. But he started to envision what would life look like afterwards. And you shared with me that he really enjoyed it, and he's kind of a role model. And I think that's just so important that we start again to step into what that can look like. I really recommend that people have a runway to retirement. And your dad sounds like he had one that was unique to him, but really kind of trying to take it small steps at a time rather than one day you're in and the next day you're out. One day you're enveloped in career and the next day you're not. And there's a lot that comes along with that sense of identity, feelings of purposefulness, that connection that we get at work as well. So many things to consider.
And retirement doesn't always have like that smooth runway like my dad had set up for himself. Sometimes you just find yourself no longer employed or employable. And
yes,
my husband, that happened to my husband. He was a truck driver for 28 years, and he started having some physical problems that precluded him from driving any longer. And so then he was just suddenly not a truck driver anymore. And really, after doing that for 28 years, it's really hard to do anything else. And when you're in your 60s, you're starting over is not the same as when you're maybe in your 30s or 40s. I mean, you're physically just able to do a lot more. And even though my husband's in, relatively good shape, he just doing manual labor or anything that requires you to do the bending and the lifting and the moving all around all the time. He's not capable of it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah,
It,
well, and you bring up an important point where there's a good percentage of people that won't be getting to choose when they leave their career. But what we can choose is our mindset. And what we can choose is that we take these steps. So maybe we don't get to map out that runway because we don't know when that end date is, but we can start now, no matter what age we are, raising that awareness around, are we weaving our identity so closely around that career? Are all our connections really around work, people at work? Is our ability to transition, because we have all kinds of transitions in life, are we able to really navigate that and see what do I want to bring with me into this next phase and what do I want to leave behind? So all of these things and more, we can really start to develop at any age. But most certainly, I would recommend that we're doing it well in advance of our retirement, so that again, it's not one day you're in, the next day you're out. So many people do flounder in retirement. 1 in 3 struggle in retirement. And that's one of the dark sides of retirement. If you think about talking to people that have retired and you say, how's it going? Generally, they're going to say it's great. If they were to say it wasn't, the answer might be, you're crazy. You're so fortunate to not be working. But the reality is that there is a struggle, and we want to raise that up and normalize it, and then be able to dig in and say, okay, what's needed then to move us forward in a very positive, productive way.
I think as human beings, we need daily to have something that we have to accomplish. My dad, he's all about cooking. He's an amazing chef. He cooks for the neighbors. He cooks for his girlfriend who lives across the street. He every day he gets up and he thinks about what he's going to make for dinner.
Mm.
And
I like
Fortune
it.
is the person who comes over to join him because it's a great meal, but
Yeah,
it's his number one purpose every day is to decide what amazing thing he's going to cook for himself, and really it's for him
yeah.
each evening. And he has certain things that he chooses to also incorporate, like he does Tai Chi. So every day he has Tai Chi, and you go and visit him, and he just has these things that flow in his life. And they've changed over the years because he's been retired and he's getting up there in age, but he always walks. And whether it's walking around in his neighborhood or it's walking at the pool, it's some form of exercise. I think he still plays bocce ball. Um, but there's things that he does every day that fill up a chunk of his day. And he has, grocery shopping, and he has some maid service, and he has other, gardening service. And, he's in a place financially where he's set up his life in a way that fits him, and his retirement it's really nice for him. It's working
Mm.
for him.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And what comes up for me as you're sharing that, Jill, is this idea that we as humans deal well with structure. Each of us is different. Some of us want more structure than less, but at the same time, that's not counter to retirement. I think so often people think when you go into retirement, then it's just freedom and willy-nilly and things, but we operate
Second
better when we
childhood.
have some kind of structure. And so now, for some, it can become where it's almost Groundhog's Day. It can become so routinized that it's like same old, and is this all there is to life? But when those kinds of feelings come up, then we want to dig a little deeper and say, well, how am I spending that time? And why am I choosing that? And what are my priorities? And is it tied to my values? So, like with your father, with the cooking and the value of sharing that good meal, or, continuing to refine his skills around it. And so having that pride in what he's doing. So when we tie our values to our actions, then we stay motivated and we stay more committed and connected with it. But if we go in thinking that, oh, I don't need to have any structure, or that structure doesn't belong in retirement, I think that we can find ourselves floundering. So that's an area that I would really want to spotlight, is that the two can coexist. And your dad is a wonderful example of that.
My husband, when he retired, I had a long heart to heart with him because he was a truck driver. When he came home, when he was driving, I would wait on him hand and foot. I did all the housework, I did all the yard work, I paid all the bills. I lived his life and my life too. And he just went to work. And when he came home, he was the king and we all waited on him. And it worked, because I didn't have to work for a lot of years. I got to do the things that I wanted to do. But when he retired, we had to have a come to Jesus meeting. Like, I can't live your life and my life too, and have you around me all the time and not living your life. So he goes to the gym 3 days a week, and he is decided the garage is his office, and he goes out there and tools around out there and organizes stuff because he's really into organizing things. For hours a day, every day. But and we have rituals at night. We don't have to be together all the time, but we have times during the day when we are together. We walk in the mornings and spend an hour together and we talk, and then we do our things during the day. So in the evening, we spend some more time together. We have something to talk about. Otherwise, it gets really boring. And
Yeah. Well, couples, again, as they navigate retirement together, studies show that, and this is generalization, but that men tend to look at retirement as a time for rest and relaxation, and women look at it as a time of rejuvenation and reimagining. So we can see already that potentially we're walking down different paths. So just as you've done, really communicating, or you said, you really had to have a talk with him, because if we take our career and move it into retirement and we don't recognize that the roles are changing, as you recognized, then we can start to see that things need to be rebalanced, or that things, if not, are going to be a bit off. I remember that when my father retired, that my mom said he retired from his work, but I haven't retired from mine of doing the cooking and the cleaning and things. And so we need to have those conversations, because we're shifting roles on the external. Internally, we're shifting as well. That's what really typifies and signifies a transition, is those internal changes. And so we start to raise up, well, what's it looking like for me now? And who do I want to be in this next phase? And so we need to have those conversations. So again, we continue to walk down the path together.
yeah, and you need to have them with each other, but you first need to understand them yourself. And you need to know who you are. The
Yes.
old adage of, two halves make a whole, that really doesn't work. It's really two wholes make something spectacular when they come together. But
Well,
you have to be you, and
yes,
you have to allow your partner to be them. Not
yes.
try to change them, not try to think that they're going to be somebody different. When you approach it with that philosophy, you open the door for greater things to come of it. And if you can appreciate the other person's contributions, even though they're not the way that you would do them. Like, we built a trailer or a camper. I did most of the work, but we had lots of conversations about it. And I learned something about my husband, which has served me so well. I learned that he looks at things at a 90 or 180-degree angle from the way I look at something. Like if I say, well, you're just going to put it up here and it's going to go like this and like that, he's going to, in his mind, have it totally the opposite direction.
Whoa.
I know it was like such a shock to me after. I mean, I had so many, I was getting so conversations with it. I was so frustrated until I just, it hit me. When I talk to him, I need to come at it from the angle of what is the opposite way to perceive what I'm talking about, because that's the way he's going to think about it.
Interesting. But yet you cracked the code. And so you were really insightful. And I think that's where, unfortunately, in the demographic that is retiring, oftentimes we don't take that time to really reflect. We don't take that time to really look at our emotions and how we feel about things, because weren't raised with positive psychology. We weren't raised to think that emotions had much weight. They were to be pushed aside or pushed down. And yet we know that our emotions, our feelings about things are going to inform our thoughts, which impact our beliefs, which impact our actions. And so that's an area that I really look at with my clients and would really want to, again, raise up to your listeners, is that we do want to dig deep. I know that for some that feels so uncomfortable. I know it did for me when I left corporate. I wasn't on that path either. I was, really driven, really goal oriented, go, 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 that whole no pain, no gain. And when I took that time to look closer at emotions, it was a very uncomfortable place for me. But yet we know that when we really tap into who we are, as you were sharing, then we can really springboard off of that into the life that really is authentic to us and feels so much more fulfilling to us. So fantastic that you take that time to really, listen and understand and communicate so that you get to that better place. It sounds like that's what you do. So.
It is what I've done, but I did have a really great role model. If my dad had been like most normal adults in his age group, because, he was raised in the 30s and 40s, where you talk about emotional suppression, that was the time.
Yeah.
You will do what your parents tell you to do, and that's that. Um, but he was just such a great role model, and he really kind to my mother. And even though she was really sick later towards the end of her life, in fact, most of the retirement, she was really not well. But he made some decisions, and he was just really good at retirement. He looked forward to it. He had a really good life before that. He was a career naval officer, and then went into he was a logistics supply officer. So he was really good at logistics and stuff. So, he had lots of adventures in his career life, but he looked at retirement, and he allowed retirement to kind of evolve. I mean, he thought it was going to be one thing. He thought he was going to be playing golf, and he realized he didn't like golf, and he didn't like the people that played golf. Sorry to all you golfers out there. But he just, like, that wasn't him. So he got into wood carving and sculpting and into the art world, and he fell in love with it. It was like, this is who he is. And more the ethereal side of things. Like, he learned Tai Chi. And just like, who
Beautiful.
are you, and what did you do with my dad?
Well, the work from Arthur Brooks, maybe you've read the book Strength to Strength, maybe some of your listeners have, and he raises up this idea that we move from fluid intelligence, where we're striving and achieving and trying to climb the ladder, to then crystallized intelligence and that wisdom that comes with it. And it sounds like your dad was really able to tap into that. You mentioned ethereal, moving into that, and that's when we start to develop this legacy of wisdom that we're.
Hey all, I'm Jill Hart. We all know that legal matters can be costly and stressful. Finding the right representation and dealing with high retainers and hourly bills adds up fast. But what if I told you there was a way to have legal insurance, just like your health or auto insurance? Well, Legal Shield has leveled that playing field. From just $29.95 a month, you get access to lawyers for personal legal matters, from traffic tickets to real estate issues or even trust matters. Help is just a tap away on your phone. Call or text 435-764-0875 and use the code JILLLEGAL or start your journey to legal protection today.
Able to really pass on to others, and that you've had these role models. And that's something that, for those of you that are thinking about retiring, look around and see who you see is retiring well, and then have chats with them, and really, but ask those questions that go beyond the superficial, not what they're doing, but how are they feeling about it, and how did they navigate it, and what decisions or did they make, and what obstacles did they come up against? Because it can give you a window into what world will work for you, or maybe what won't. But I think that's again how we can start to spend this time before we retire, is starting to look at that. You mentioned too that with your dad that he started off with golfing and then moved on to other things. There is this honeymoon phase that people often go through when they retire, and it lasts in the main between 6 months and 2 years. And at that time, people are getting involved in the bucket list and the to-do list and the traveling and the things that they just never had time for. But for those that don't look beyond it or don't stay open to the pivot that we talked about earlier, then they can start to find that Groundhog's Day, that hamster wheel of same old, same old. So it is important that we're constantly questioning and experimenting and trying things out, and really looking at it that it's not a block of retirement years that are 20 or 30 years, but maybe it's in different phases. And that's what I recommend to my clients too, is that we don't just lock into, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing now for forever, but instead do it until you're wanting something else, or do it until you feel satisfied and then you're searching for something. But having just that template to really question and really look at things and dig in and say, how am I feeling about this? Take that temperature check and then see what things need to change so you stay vibrant and learning and expanding and feeling good about that chapter in your life.
Thinking about connections too.
Mm.
Having connections with other human beings, it's really easy to feel isolated when you retire. And
Yes,
especially as you age in retirement, your kids may move away, your family may move away, you may move to a different area because you can't afford to live in the place that you were living in while you were working. And then you don't have the structure to make new friends and make new associations. They don't even have to be friends, but people that we talk to every day, because it's really important that we not isolate ourselves.
absolutely. I mean, that epidemic of loneliness hits really hard as we age. I mean, it's difficult at all ages, but our world can get smaller as there is loss. And so we want to think about looking at the quality and quantity of our current friendships and also developing fresh friends. And so that's an area that I go into with my clients as well, because we know too that having quality relationships so that they are energizing, not draining to us, is going to help us stay on a path of feeling positive and feeling invigorated. And so looking at those connections is very important. And we know that when we're working, those are baked into work, as is purpose is baked into work. And so we want to then be mindful as we move into retirement, who will we be then bringing with us into retirement, and who do we want to make sure that we connect with? So important. And I think that oftentimes people hold back, they wait for someone else to reach the hand out to them or make the call to them, but be that person that reaches out first. It'll be gratifying. I had one client that said, gosh, I've been so committed to my work that I let all these friendships go by the wayside and now it's too late. And I really challenged her to say, why is it too late? What would it take for you to reach out? And what do you think will be the response? What's the worst thing? Are they going to hang up on you? I don't think so. Are they going to say you took too long to call me? So why not experiment and give it a little try? And she did. And she came back so gratified because, of course, everyone was excited to hear from her, just as she would have been excited to hear from them. And she was able then to really reignite some of those relationships. So let's be that person that reaches out and not wait, because we know that, again, connection, we're human beings. We want to feel like we're a part of something. It's just a vitally important part of that retirement well-being.
And learning, the
Mm.
continued exploration of our world around us. Colleges, they love seniors. I think you can even get like discounts for courses. Take a pottery course. You don't have to go get a degree. You can just go and take courses. And sometimes you can just audit courses. It
Yes.
keeps your mind active. And, take a math class.
Well,
It's
it is.
really good for your brain.
It is having that beginner's mind though, right? You know, when we're in career, so oftentimes we get to that level of expertise. And so then we feel as though we can't be less than. But yet, if we step into things and say, we're just experimenting, we're trying, we're not making it too significant, we have a lightness about it, and we just give things a try, then we do, as you said, open up the world to some other opportunities and that learning and growing. But I think oftentimes people put these parameters around things or expectations, and let's let go of those. You know, let's just put a toe in. You don't have to stay committed to something. You start to take that class that you're auditing and it really doesn't match for you. Is it because you're feeling like you aren't good enough at it, or is it feeling I'm just not interested in it? And so let's really be discerning about that. But this is where we foster then that growth mindset that Carol Dweck talks about, and that idea that we're not fixed in our capabilities or what we've been able to accomplish, but continuously opening up and taking that little comfort in the discomfort and seeing where we can stretch ourselves just a little bit.
And getting to meet people, because other people are going to be taking these classes too. And when you
Yes.
expose yourself to different environments where different kinds of people are, you're going to have opportunities to form new relationships. And yeah, maybe in colleges they're all pretty young, but it's okay. You can have relationships with the younger people that they make you younger too.
Yeah. You know, at the beginning, though, I shared about normalizing the situation. And I have to say, Jill, that a lot of my clients, when we start to really explore their level of confidence of stepping into things, even like you're mentioning, taking a class, you know, it can get rocked because, again, they're coming from an environment that they knew. This is a whole new frontier. It's not that you're not bringing skills and capabilities and passions with you. You're not starting over. There's a lot to springboard off of into retirement, but we sometimes forget everything that we bring with us. So it's important that we then, if we're starting to feel like, oh, I don't want to do that, dig a little deeper and say, well, what's getting in the way there? And if it's that lack of confidence, which is totally normal, then say, well, what's the smallest step that I can take toward to go in that direction? Or what is it that I need to take a little deeper look at in order to feel that level of confidence? But all of these difficult emotions that come up are signals that we need more attention to things. So we don't want to push it aside. We want to step into it and say, okay, what will help me then keep moving forward? Because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it is. And hiring somebody like you that can help them navigate some of the things that, not everyone is as fortunate as I was. And I just was really fortunate to have my dad be so good at it. So if I didn't have him, then, my life might look a lot different right now than
Yes.
it does, because having somebody that you can talk to and help you navigate some of the ideas of how to deal with your emotions, because it is kind of an emotional time. It's like, you know, as women, we go through menopause, and I'm loving now how many women are stepping up and saying, hey, it's not so bad over on this side. I personally love it. I wouldn't trade where I'm at in life for anything. This is the best part of my life right now. But I know when I was first going into it, I was just like, oh my God, this is going to last forever. And it's miserable. I don't know who to talk to. So don't let retirement be like that for you. You got Wendy, call her.
I so appreciate that. I mean, I think that we oftentimes don't see what happens when we do transition. And that was new to me also when I left my corporate career and decided to start my own business, that I didn't realize that when we go through a transition, there are some steps that we need to be aware of. We're going to feel, like you said, when you dealt with menopause, there's going to be an ending to a life that we had or things that were part of us. There's going to be this time of confusion, and then there's going to be stepping into a new beginning, as you ultimately did. And so those are the 3 steps in a transition. William Bridges shares that with us, and Bruce Feiler, he underscores it, that if we overlook those things, and so often people do, clients come to me, they've jumped from the ending and that reflection time right into the new beginning. And they have a full dance card and they're busy, busy, busy. And then they're thinking, I'm so exhausted, I might as well go back to work and at least I'm getting paid. That tells me that maybe we haven't really had closure around our career. And we haven't really thought about, how am I filling up that dance card? Is it filled up with things that are fulfilling, or is it just filling time? And so we want to be aware that we need to have closure to our career. That's why rituals like celebrations are so helpful, or writing cards to people, or just taking yourself out to dinner, whatever it is, but putting kind of a exclamation mark or a period around that career. Recognizing what those difficult emotions are, not pushing them under the rug, and then doing this envisioning, like we talked about in this reflection of what would I want in this next chapter. And there can be a lot of confusion or a lot of stuckness around that before then we move into that new beginning. But I always want to say that it's not a new book, it's a new chapter. So you bring with you so many things. And let's not overlook that. You're not starting over, you're just moving on to the next phase. So lots and lots of exciting things and lots of things to consider so that we make sure that we do make the most of such a unique and exciting time.
That so much. So do you work with people one-on-one, or do you have a group coaching sort of arrangement? How does
Oh,
all that
thanks.
look?
Yeah, I do both. So one-on-one group as well as couples. I do find that the one-on-one, and there are a number of people that enjoy group, but I tend to focus the most on one-on-one because I really think everyone's journey is individual. And yes, we can kind of look at a process that in the main will work for people, but I really like it to kind of ebb and flow depending on that individual's needs and where they're coming in, because we need to meet people where they stand, right? And then take it to whatever level. You know, I've talked about digging deep, but for many people, that's not where they live, and that's not ever going to be what they want. And so really being able to really focus on what works for a person and then helping them navigate from that place.
And it's not so much about telling somebody what they have to do. It's
Mhm.
more about letting them explore what's possible from
Yeah,
their own perspective, rather, because you just know the questions to ask to help them plot the journey rather than
yeah.
you telling them. I think sometimes people lose that in translation when they think about a life coach or a therapist. It's like, but they're,
Yeah,
I
no,
need
we're
them.
really the opposite, right? We know
Yeah.
that we all have the answers. And if somebody is there to guide you and help support you, walk shoulder to shoulder and help bring those answers up to the surface, that you'll own those. I mean, because those will be what's important to you. So I think when I start off with some clients, even though I try to explain what our engagement will be like, I think oftentimes they initially think that I will be telling them, or I'll have these lists of, here's some activities, here's some hobbies, here's some meetups. And
Yeah.
that's not what it's about. You know, together we can figure out a process to uncover those things, but it's really more important to start with the why. Start with, what feels meaningful to you? Why are you here? What's the years ahead going to be for you? How can you contribute to yourself and to those you love and to your community and to your world? What is your why? So those are the things that I start with first, and ultimately we get to the what. But that's not the most important piece, because if we have the framework and the template and the roadmap, then the rest will flow.
And it does flow. It's not, it just seems like it magically appears for you, but it really is because you've had somebody help you really get crystal clear on what it is that you are and your
Yes,
purpose. And we talk about purpose, but everybody has a purpose. Everybody's here to do something. And
yes,
sometimes it's not really obvious, especially if we've been really busy for a really long part of our life, whether it's raising kids or working in the corporate world or just grinding it out every day.
yeah.
You may think about a lot of things, but you don't really think about what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Or appreciating what you are doing because you just haven't even had that time to really
Yeah.
reflect or celebrate or recognize it. And so I
Mhm.
think that's the piece too, is that we do get so busy and life can get very out of balance. Now we have that opportunity to really see what are the priorities. And, thinking back to what I really enjoyed when I was younger, if people don't have hobbies or interests, helping figure out what those might be. But oftentimes we're so busy that we just overlook it. And so I think that that's a really important piece. And I think that's what coaching allows, is that reflection time, that time to really get away from the doing and step into the being that human being, not a human doing. It's
Yes.
very gratifying.
I also think that people who are in their 40s, their late 40s and early 50s, are not too young to start talking to people like you to maybe start envisioning the what ifs,
Yes.
because that will make your transition into that time when it comes less jarring, because you have an idea and you can sort of lay some groundwork for making sure that that transition is smooth and for how it might look. It doesn't have to look that way. In fact, it probably won't. The
Right.
earlier you start with your ideas about what you want the later part of your life to look like, probably the less that it's going to actually look like that, and it's going to be something much more spectacular than even you could have imagined, because
Yeah.
you've given yourself so much time to envision so much more.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And looking at the possibilities and, like I said, experimenting and putting a toe in. And so when I work with clients in advance, because a number of them come to me 1, 3, 5 years before, and we really can start to experiment and map things out, or have the to don't list, whatever it is, or a curiosity list. And so then starting to just try some of those things out. But I highly recommend it. And I also find too that by working with clients before they retire, that they start to see how they can leave their work in such a gratifying way and in such a power-filled way, that that's just a beautiful springboard into the next chapter. Because, we hear about the short timer syndrome and people saying, oh, you're going to be retiring in 6 months, so you're phoning it in. It doesn't have to be that way at all. And you've worked hard throughout your career. So to be able to leave on that high note is gratifying to the people you're leaving behind, and so gratifying for the steps that you're taking forward too. So having that runway allows for that as well. And I think that that's a piece that's overlooked too, that I think people start to see, oh, okay, I'm going to be retiring here, but they don't really think about how they can really leave on that high note. And that's just a beautiful thing to do, and something that I definitely work on with my clients as well.
Yeah, and be able to celebrate the transition,
Mm.
and also to be able to start recognizing the things outside of work that may be transitioning into retirement with you. Like for my husband, it was the gym. For my dad, it was it was deciding that he was going to give up his boat and he was going to embrace golf. But it didn't end up being that. It was something else. But he had something. He 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 actually went in it. He was in logistics, so he helped some community projects get going. So he was still sort of doing the same thing that he was doing when he was working,
Yeah,
but he was helping. It was more of a contribution than a
yeah,
you have to show up and do this sort of thing. And
beautiful.
it you can still embrace who you are in retirement. It doesn't mean that you're no longer that person of elevation, that you've reached this point. I mean, you've worked really hard for probably 40 years of your life at least to get to a certain point in your career. And when you retire, you don't stop being that person. You're just
Yeah, it's just a change of roles.
Mhm.
And so Martin Seligman, the thought of as the father of positive psychology, talks about something called PERMA, really looking at what allows for well-being. And so that's this idea of positive engagement and really getting into flow and meaningful relationships, and having meaning in your life and accomplishments. And by looking at those, and that's an exercise I go through with clients, what is permanent in your work and what can you move with you into retirement? And equally important, what do you want to let go of? Because we
Yeah.
know that, again, if we're not mindful, we can bring a lot of baggage, a lot of weight with us into our next chapter that will weigh us down and will get in the way. And so we want to be mindful and raise that up too, and let go of some of those things that don't serve us. So that's an important area too. Lots of exciting things to think about for sure.
I know that you offer a no regrets retirement exercise. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit?
Oh,
Because I think
yeah,
that
I'd
would
love
help
to.
people.
We've been talking about this idea of visualizing, really kind of trying to think about what's next. And I think if we don't take time and just sit down and reflect, then that can be a very fuzzy view. So I do have this no regrets retirement exercise where you really map out what's the perfect retirement. So you kind of capture that in writing, and then really thinking about, okay, if that's my perfect retirement, then what would a day look like? And what would a week look like? And so then you can start to see, is it going to be that kind of same old hamster wheel? Ooh, I'm going to try to fill the time. Or do you start to get a little more discerning? And then the next part of it is, now you don't have this time abundance. Now your landscape is shortened. And so now you just have 5 years that you're going to have in retirement. What would that look like for you? And we start to see the priorities that start to rise. And then the third part of it is, if there's no time left, and so your time horizon has been cut short, what would you regret? Because if we do that in advance, and we really think about what's important to us, we can reverse engineer and make sure that we're enveloping those important things in our lives now. So it's a really great exercise, very impactful, and I'd love to offer that to all your listeners.
And you guys can find that at boldnewsteps.com, and I will put that link down in the show notes, as well as the confluxretirementcoaching.com website, where you can reach out to Wendy and explore how her coaching services might look for you with her.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, Wendy. What's the one thing you hope the audience takes away from our conversation today?
That we want to step into a retirement by design, not default. That we want to take the ownership, be the CEO of you, as I call it, and really lead our lives in a way that is going to feel meaningful, instead of just allowing life to take over. So a retirement by design, not default. And thanks so much for letting me share.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.